Hey guys, today we're talking about the most misunderstood exercise in all of youth soccer. So let's go. So this is probably going to be very controversial, and I'm very interested to see what the comments say, but my personal opinion is that the vast majority of coaches in the United States do not understand how to run a rondo and how to coach a rondo. So first, what is a rondo? So let's just Google what is a rondo. And when you do that, the first thing that comes up is the Wikipedia page for rondo. So let's kind of go through this. A rondo is a type of game similar to keep away. Okay, so here's the first stumbling block that many coaches get sort of preoccupied with, is that rondo is a keep away game. And yes, it is a keep away game, but that is not what you're coaching. And it really gets in the way when people are trying to teach the actual coaching points of a rondo. For example, coaches will emphasize movement of the ball quickly. So they'll say, keep it hot, keep it moving, keep it moving. And that is a consequence of body shape, scanning, and quick decision making. Okay, it's not the point of the rondo to move the ball quick, just to keep it moving. That's a consequence of good coaching, putting the ball across your body, getting in the right position, scanning, making quick decisions. Moving on, in a rondo, one group of players is tasked with keeping possession of the ball while completing a series of passes, while the smaller group of players, sometimes a single player, tries to take possession. Okay, that is true. Rondos occur close together, with the possessing group frequently encircling the opposing group. I don't love encircling, and if you look at the picture here that Wikipedia gives, it's the women's Barcelona team. This is a classic Bayern Munich 10v2 warm-up. It is not a rondo. When you talk about the things that you coach in a rondo and what you're looking for in a rondo, a 10v2 circle warm-up isn't getting you there. So for me, this is not a rondo, and a lot of coaches, especially in the United States, will tell their team, hey, go start a rondo, and it ends up being this circle of 8, 10, 12 players with 2 in the middle. And people are just standing around, they're not moving, they're not scanning for space. And so I think this is, again, one of the real big stumbling blocks that people get into when they try to think of what is a rondo. It goes on to say rondos are said to improve player decision-making, coordination, team play, creativity, competitiveness, and physical conditioning. I would agree with all that. Then gives a little bit of history about kind of where it started. And then, of course, gives the classic Johan Cruyff quote that everybody uses about rondos. Everything that goes on in a match except shooting, you can do in a rondo. The competitive aspect, fighting to make space, what you do when in possession, what to do when you haven't got the ball, how to play one-touch football, how to counteract the tight marking, and how to win the ball back. You will notice that he says nothing about keep away in that particular quote. Okay, so this is the basic setup for your 4v1 rondo. And you can see you have 4 cones in a square. Each one of the blue players is in possession, and they go up and down their line between each side of the cone, and they stay there. The red player is the defender who's trying to win the ball back. Because the exercise is set up like this, it gives you the ability to coach the points you're trying to coach. Okay, you can teach angles to receive. You can teach angles to support. You can teach them to receive across their body. You start to introduce concepts of scanning, thinking about what you're going to do before you get the ball. So the size of the rondo, the grid itself, is an area where I see coaches make mistakes quite a bit. Sometimes they're too small and the team in possession doesn't have enough success keeping the ball. And then other times they're too big and it's not much of a challenge for the 4 players here, for example, to keep the ball. And sometimes you have to play with it. Like you might start at a certain size depending on your group, and then you either, make it bigger, make it smaller. It really depends on how that exercise is going. In general, the younger teams and the less skilled teams need a larger grid, and the older teams and the more skilled teams need a smaller grid. Now, again, these can be 4v1, 4v2, they can be 4v2 plus 1, they could be positional, you could do a 6v4 plus 1, you could even add goals for the defenders to take the ball to if they win it. The purpose of this video is really to talk in general about rondos and not to get too deep into the weeds on any particular one. So just a point of contention here, some people would call these type of games positional games and not rondos because you're adding players into the middle of the pitch, so the +1 here. For me, the coaching points are very similar, so I actually think these are positional rondos, but just in case you're wondering about that level of clarification. One thing that I tend to see is that the rondos, even when they're set up correctly and it's not just a circle warm-up, they're not intense enough, and the players are kind of just standing around, the ball is moving very slowly. And so here's some tips to make it more intense. First, in my opinion, most people drag rondos on way too long. So for example, in the 4v1 rondo, I would have the defender in the middle for 30 seconds to no more than 45 seconds. Because you want that defender to be giving maximum effort. You want the full amount of pressure there. And if it goes on for 3-4 minutes, especially in a 4v1 or where you only have 1 or 2 defenders in the middle, they're going to get tired very quickly. Another option, like I said before, was to just add goals. So if the defenders get the ball back, they have a goal to go to. And then you start teaching, okay, now you have to counter press. You have to win the ball back from the team in possession. You can have it where, for example, in the 4v1, 4 passes equals a point. If the defenders touch the ball, they get a point. Or if the defenders are able to win the ball and go to goal, they get 3 points, play to a certain number. But for the most part, the biggest thing is coaching intensity. You have to tell them, talk to the person with the ball, move to the angle that you're supposed to be at. Constant movement. One trick that I'll use is if the kids are not moving up and down their lines the entire 30 seconds, there'll be 10 push-ups at the end for everybody. So this comes up a lot, especially in my experience in American coaches, where they're very interested and sort of obsessed with free flow possession, and sometimes they'll call it a rondo. For me, rondos are always positional to some degree. So even in the 4v1, you have a diamond. So it can get very positional where you have the 6v4+1 that I showed you, which would be working on potentially a back 4 with a single pivot, and then you have 2 attacking center mids up top, maybe like a 4-3-3 there. What you're trying to do with these rondos at its baseline, at its core, is to replicate game-like situations where pressure will be coming from different angles. The more that you work on this, the more you'll be able to build out of the back, the more you'll be able to deal with certain attacking patterns, midfield transition. In my opinion, when you do these free flow, a very popular one is called the cross the river. You're not enforcing game-like decisions. And people will say, well, you're getting them to think on the fly, and that might be true, but in the structure of the game, typically they are in a position. And now I understand those positions can switch and there can be all sorts of things happening, but in order to lay a framework, I really feel like rondos need to be positional. That might be controversial. Let me know what you think, but this topic does come up. One thing that you rarely see is coaching the defenders or the pressure in a rondo. And this is important, especially as you get older and you're trying to plan for certain types of pressing or certain types of blocks. At the younger ages, it's important because especially when you start getting into 4v2, even with 4v1, you get the person who's the pressure kind of just running like a chicken with their head cut off. And really they should be talking to each other. So if it's a 4v2, for example, one person has to press, one person has to cover. The other thing is kind of going along with the intensity aspect is to make sure the defenders are giving everything. And they'll do this if they understand it's only going to be for 30 seconds or 45 seconds for whatever it is. Sometimes you'll get a player who will just be lazily walking around, and if they're not giving game realistic pressure. Okay, each one of these coaching points could probably be an entire video, but I wanted to run through some major ones quickly. And then really the overriding concept here is you don't want to go through 7 of these at a time. I mean, I usually try to pick 1 or 2 that I'm interested in any particular rondo session. Angles of support, how do I support the ball carrier the best, give them the best angle, body shape to receive across your body, quick 1-2 touch passing. So in a 4v1 scenario, we really want to encourage 2 touches First receive, then pass. Scanning, where's the pressure? Can I anticipate where that space might open up? Thinking about the action before you do it. So what we call scan, choose, do. So trying to think about before the ball gets to me what I might do with it given where the pressure is. We really want to cultivate a culture of communication, helping the ball carrier out. If you're running specific positional rondos, that's going to be, if the fullback needs to support the center back, how do I enforce that? In general, these are really trying to get comfortable with tight spaces, because if you can do some of these things in these tight rondo spaces, they become much easier during the game. And then if the space gets tight during the game, you're able to deal with it. And lastly, if the pressure's on, especially in the younger ages, they have a tendency to try to receive a ball when they either have to shield or one touch when the pressure's on. Just in general, I, again, would focus on one or two of these within each one of your rondo sessions. So this isn't something that gets good overnight. It's not something you can do once or twice and expect your team to look like Barcelona. Especially in the younger age groups, you have to do it every single training session. So for my younger teams, I do 4v1 rondos at least 15 minutes every single time we're out. And I layer in some of those different coaching points, but it's going to take a long time. And you just have to be patient with it, and you have to believe that it's going to work. I really can't stress this enough. You've got to commit to it. Sometimes I get emails from coaches that say, I did it, for 2 sessions and it didn't go that well. And again, especially in the younger age groups, you have to be consistent and do it every single training session. Guys, I did want to show you just a short clip of uninterrupted an example of me doing a rondo with one of my teams. It's a U11 team. And I just want you to pay attention to the intensity and how, really it's after like 40 seconds, we switch that defender in the middle. This really creates game-like pressure and quick decision-making that you just have to have in these situations. The other thing that I want you to pay attention to is my coaching voice and the intensity with which I'm doing it, despite the fact that I actually have to step in and be one of the ends of the rondo in this scenario. Hey guys, I hope that helped you get better at your rondos for your teams. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out or go ahead and make comments in the comments section, and we'll see you next time.